I want to now bring in former U.S. Air Force Assistant Vice Chief of Staff, retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton. He's also NewsNation senior national security contributor. General, good morning to you. Tom and I just covered the gamut there. Let me start with Iran first. Will President Trump's warning to push Iran, will that make them negotiate? And also, do his comments signal that Iran has made more progress when it comes to nuclear ambitions?
Well, good morning, Markie. As you said, geopolitical tensions are very high, first and foremost with Iran, and if we get into discussions with Putin and Russia. But as Tom mentioned, the United States, led by President Trump in 2018, pulled out of an Obama-era-led nuclear agreement in 2018. But fast forward to 2025, Iran is much closer to developing a nuclear weapon than perhaps we saw in 2018. Hence the tension, and hence, I believe, President Trump's rhetoric and strong rhetoric, which I support. The fact that Iran has said that they will not, negotiate directly with the United States, they'll do it perhaps through secondary channels, I think has effectively angered the president, put him in a position to make sure that Iran knows that if they do not come to any negotiating table to, again, stop their nuclear weapons program, that he will act. He'll act forcibly with United States air power in this case, which my view, and I would advise the president, that would attack Iran's nuclear weapons development capability. We need to be in a position right now where we do so sooner rather than later, because they're much closer to developing that weapon, which would really upend the Mideast, Markie, and certainly put in harm's way U.S. national security interests, not only for the United States, but for our close friends Israel, but also other Arab nations do not want Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, and are we essentially already in battle with Iran with these growing strikes against the Houthis, sir?
We are. The Houthis are a strong proxy terrorist organization, been supported by Iran for many years. The fact that the Trump administration is not putting up with any of the Houthis who are putting in harm's way not only U.S. shipping and U.S. national security interests in the Red Sea, but 12% of global commerce by sea go through the Red Sea. And so the president's not putting up with that. Again, another national security initiative I support. He has been rather relentless over the last several days in pursuing the Houthis in terms of their own weapons capability, but also their leadership and their infrastructure to make sure that they stop putting in harm's way global shipping, which is really putting a cramp in the United States economy, but also global economy as well.
Yeah, the rhetoric is ratcheting up there. We're following that closely. Let me switch gears now to Russia. General, meanwhile, President Trump says he's very angry. He's pissed off at Russian President Putin for questioning Ukrainian President Zelensky's credibility. What will the president's frustration mean for these ceasefire talks, you think?
Well, first, context. Putin's relentless pursuit here of toppling President Zelensky in Ukraine and putting in a Kremlin-led government in Ukraine has not subsided these past 3 years. That's why he attacked Ukraine in the first place. But what the challenge that the president now has is trying to get Putin to a ceasefire negotiated table, much less a long-term peace table. And he's now using what I would term economic warfare, or what he mentioned on Air Force One last night is sanctions, but also secondary tariffs against Russia to go forth and really put in their peril their Russian economy. The source of the Russian economy is really their oil and gas revenues. 1/3 of the Russian budget actually for 2024 was a result of Russian oil and gas revenues. And so also what he's made clear is those trading partners that would deal with Russia, that have the economic relationship, such as China and India, perhaps. He'll put secondary tariffs on those nations as well, and not allow those nations to actually have trading relationships with the United States. So the economic warfare aspect of this is looming larger and larger. And I believe that's a card that the president has. I think he has room to grow in terms of sanctions against Russia, as I mentioned, against their oil and gas. But also, Markie, it's not just the sanctions themselves. It's the enforcement of those sanctions, which has been lacking over the last 4 years. You're going to see the president move forward very swiftly on that note.
Yeah, ripple effects there would be felt worldwide. Got to end it there. Lieutenant General Richard Newton, thank you so much, as always, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.